Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Holyoke Public Schools School Committee meeting for March 15, 2021. The meeting is starting now at 6:17 p.m. Liz, roll call, please.
Mayor Morse.
Present.
Ms. LaFave.
Present.
Mr. Sheehan.
Present.
Ms. Brunel.
Here.
Ms. Tensley Williams.
Present.
Thank you. Mrs. Burks. We have to hear her, Mildred.
Go ahead, say it again, Rebecca.
Thank
Did
you.
you hear? Okay.
Ms. Feliciano Sims.
Here.
Mr. Wellahan.
Here.
Mr. Collmore, star 6. Mr. Cushane.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Ms. Puelo. Did I hear a present?
No.
Okay, Ms. Brennan.
Present.
Thank you.
Oh, so everybody's present. Great. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Niles, your flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, everybody, for being so patient this evening. We just had a bit of some technical issues going on. So I just want to remind everyone, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I'm hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of the meeting, and the meeting is being live streamed and run live on the city's community TV channel, Boxcast, and I believe it's going as well with the Spanish interpretation. I also want to remind everybody, no chatting in the chat box. This is a public meeting, as well as if you are currently not part of the school committee members or the student representative or Liz or the interim receiver, Anthony Soto, then everybody else's cameras come off until it's time for you to come on, back on for your presentation. And always remember to keep your mute button on until you're up speaking. With that being said, we're gonna first introduce our student showcase, and that would be the Donahue School Black History presentation. And I know we have Mr. Nieves, Ms. Sasha, and Ms. Ditkoff present. I'm not sure if there's anybody else, but we do have Mr. Zweigert here. So I will pass it on to our interim receiver, Mr. Anthony Soto.
Thank you, Mildred. We wanted to recognize 3 of our students. Honestly, the student showcase has always been one of my favorites in terms of the school committee meetings. Today we have 3 of our students, and Mark Schweigert's going to introduce them. Mark.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I am absolutely always excited when we get a chance to introduce our students and the work that they're doing. I just want to introduce Amelia Ditkoff. She's actually the art teacher.
Excuse me, is something wrong with Mr. Sweigert's audio, or is that just me?
Can you hear me clearly now? Is that better?
Better.
Devin? All right, Mr. Sheehan. So I wanted to first introduce Ms. Ditkoff. Amelia Ditkoff is the art teacher. She's been working with our students since last year and has done some incredible work with them. And I am going to just hand it off to her, and she will introduce the students, and they'll be able to talk a little bit about the work that they have done. All right, it's all you, Ms. Ditkoff.
Hi, everyone. So with us today, we have Jomar Nieves and Sasha Mendez. If you both want to just give a little wave so people can see who you are. So Jomar is in 8th grade and Sasha is in 7th grade. They are both incredibly talented artists. And so I have a little presentation that shows some of their recent artworks for the last 2 projects we did. And they both wrote a short description of their work. So they actually are going to read their own writing to you, and Sasha's artwork is first. So we just have 3 photos of their work, and Sasha, this is Sasha Mendez. So Sasha is in 7th grade. This was from our Martin Luther King Jr. project, where the students were supposed to copy a video where I taught them how to draw him. But the reason why I chose these 2 students is because they went beyond above and beyond, and they actually drew this completely on their own. So they didn't just watch my video and copy from the video. They created their artwork based on their own talent, not from the video that I created. So that's why I was so impressed with them. And the writing in the background was they were supposed to write down their own dreams for the future. So Sasha, if you would like to go ahead and read your paragraph, that's on the next slide.
I created this drawing using paper and colored pencils. The dreams I wrote in the background include, I wish that people would stop being racist and also just accept people for who they are. Another dream I wrote was that I would love to.
Oh, Sasha, I think your sound may have just went out. Oh. Sasha, can you hear us?
Do more with art in the future and also grow my drawing skills. I find much joy in drawing and I would hate it if I wasn't continuing doing this in the future. My Martin Luther King drawing is also very important to me because he has made such an impact on the world. And if he didn't say what he did on that day, the world could have been very different. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. So I think your sound went out for just a second, so we may have missed a little bit in the middle. Would you mind just going back to maybe right after you said getting a job that is art related? Because I think we missed that.
All right, I'll say it back.
Thank you.
Going to college for art or getting a job that is even art related. These dreams are very important for my future because me and my whole family are Puerto Rican and Black. I would love to see a future where people can't get hurt just for their skin color. I would love to do more with art in the future and also grow my drawing skills. I find much joy in drawing and I would hate it if I wasn't continuing to do it in the future. My Martin Luther King drawing is also very important to me because he has made such an impact on the world. And if he didn't say what he did on that day, the world could have been very different. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. So this art is by Jomar Nieves. He is in 8th grade. He used charcoal and pencil for this drawing. And Jomar, if you would like to go ahead and read yours. So again, neither of these students copied my video. They are chosen because they created this on their own. So this is truly, completely all their artwork.
Okay, so how I drew my Martin Luther King picture was from getting inspiration or reference from real photos of him. And I found a photo that caught my attention and I thought it had potential for my vision. When I drew the picture, I used a pencil only because I wanted it to be black and white. But the pencil wasn't dark enough, so I used charcoal for it. So it could be very dark and shadowy. The picture was perfect for an assignment that I combined it with, which made the picture even more like a revolutionary art statement. I wanted to honor Dr. Martin Luther King in the best way I could, and that was through my art.
Thank you, Jomar. And Jomar, did you have anything else that you wanted to say? I know we had talked about you wanted to say a couple things, or was that it?
Don't remember.
Okay, no worries. That was perfect. So we just have one more artwork, and this is also by Jomar. This is a project, our most recent art project based on the artist Faith Ringgold. So there's not a description for this, but Jomar, if you want to say anything about this artwork and how you created it, go ahead.
Well, usually I do either like, I don't know, like paint or color pencil, but kind of wanted to, I guess, challenge myself because usually it's more easier to just draw it. So I just used crayon. In some parts I messed up, but I fixed it eventually. So that's how I did it. And I kind of just like took different pictures of the artists, like paintings, and I combined them together. So that's how I created mine.
Thank you, Joma.
That's amazing work. Thank you for showcasing your work today.
You're welcome.
That was awesome. Thank you. I love the artwork, by the way. You guys are awesome. It came out beautiful, very realistic.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Nieves? And Sasha, it's Mendez or Melendez?
Just Mendez.
Mendez,
Yeah.
okay. Or for Miss Mendez, I think that's Mr. Collimore.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Collimore, go ahead, you're on.
Yes, Mildred. And please pass the word that I'm very impressed on what those students really did. And they should put those pictures someplace where the whole city can see them. They're really wonderful. And thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, Mr. Collimore. I believe they heard your comment. Thank you. Ms. Tensley Williams.
Yes, I am extremely proud of those students. When we get through tonight, I have a poem that I wrote. You never outgrow your need to read, so I'll wait till the end. But I am very proud of them. The art is excelente. It's beautiful. So kids, never give up. Just keep on, young people. And we got you back, okay? Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to share? So just a quick question for Mr. Nieves and Ms. Mendez. I'm not sure who wants to go first, but before I ask you guys a question, so there's also another Mildred LaFave here, but that's really Rebecca Burks. That was the only way that I was going to get their school committee member, Ms. Burks, into our meeting. So the imposter Mildred LaFave is really Ms. Burks. What is art something that you want to continue doing in the future? Is that something that you're looking to do when you go, if you're thinking of going to college? Like where is it? I know that you wanted to go to Korea, Ms. Mendez. Just talk a little bit about what your plans are in expanding your art talent, because that is pure talent.
Basically, I just really enjoy drawing, and I would really like to maybe go to a school for drawing, because it's always been something that I've been really passionate about, basically. And yeah, I would just love to do more with it. If it's going to college, or like I said, getting a job that is art related, like doing pottery, or I was even thinking about doing tattoos. But yeah, I've always loved drawing, and if it's something I could do for a long time, it would just be very nice.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Nieves, it's your turn now. Could he hear me? Mr. Nieves, could you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, like everything just like started doing that thing where it's like the voice sounds weird.
Yeah, no
Let's say that
problem.
again.
Oh, so just the question was in regards to your art, because obviously that's talent. You guys did an awesome job. Love the pictures, love the artwork, even your writing. So is that something that you were looking um, to, either if it's to go to college, but is art something like a career that you were looking at getting into? Is it something that many have also used, sort of like a type of coping mechanism, and it just brings some peace to them? Just whichever one.
Well, I mean, ever since I was like very young, I always drew. So it's always something I've done. It's not like I've just one day wanted to learn how to draw. It's just something I do. So, I mean, it's obviously going to be a part of my life, so I think I should use it. And I have dreams of like meeting other artists and, collabing and stuff like that. So that's another thing. And like, I like do like art for media and stuff sometimes. So that's how I get my art out there sometimes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ms. Dickoff.
I just wanted to add also that Jomar was part of a small group of students that actually came and helped me make a Black Lives Matter mural in Northampton, Massachusetts. So he has experience with mural making now, which also, Jomar, is a great thing to put on your resume. But that is an idea for something that you can all do in the future as a real job where you can really get paid if you do that. And he did a great job on that. So you should all check it out. It's in Northampton at the bike trail.
Thank you. I had fun that day.
Thank you so much for everything. Thank you, Mr. Swigert, for bringing Jomar and Sasha. And Ms. Dickoff, I'm going to just assume here you must be the art teacher, or okay.
Yes.
And thank you as well for bringing the students and showcasing their work. That's something that we haven't been showcasing in the past couple months, but we're so happy to have it back because there's so much talent across our district, and we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to see that. Thank you again, guys, for coming.
I have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Niall. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are they, I missed the grades. Is it 8th grade?
Sasha is in 7th grade and Jomar is in 8th grade.
And are any plans on, are they staying in the district for high school? Looking to maybe, what's the next step, like the literal next step, not college, but what's the next step for these guys, maybe 9th grade?
I mean, in high school, I'd probably be attending art classes, maybe. Like stuff like that, I guess.
Okay. Is there any collaboration at this point with our junior high students and high school students, or not really? Like, I don't know if you're thinking North Campus, South Campus, technical drawing, or just kind of getting an idea if there's any connection yet.
We have opened up. A lot of our 8th graders had an opportunity to tour the Dean campus. That was coordinated with a lot of the Dean Tech staff to see if there's any interest in going the vocational route. That was opened up and pretty successful over the last couple of weeks.
I don't have anything further on that.
Thank you, Mr. Cushane. And again, thank you, guys, for coming and joining us this evening. And continue the artwork. It's great. It's beautiful.
Thank
you for having us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swigert. So we're going to move on to public comment. Ms. LaFond, did anybody sign up for public comment, submit public comment?
I had no public comment today, Mildred.
Okay, great. So moving from that, we're going to move on to communications and reports. And first on the agenda is student reports. And we do have here both of our student reps. So if I could please hear Ms. Buello from the Holyoke Dean campus. Is there anything you'd like to share with us this evening? She's here.
So our students completed midterms with a high participation rate. 10th grade town hall was a success with student-led MCs. There were awards given and family members who attended town hall with a special visit from Cedric the Entertainer, who was a guest speaker. Staff members and students created a slideshow and delivered a virtual tour to 7 different middle schools and over 400 students. As a result, we received 145 applications from sending schools in Holyoke. The deadline for applications is until March 19th.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Puello. Ms. Brennan from Holyoke High North Campus.
Hi, everyone. So our updates from Holyoke High today are going to start off with a big card giveaway sponsored by Gary Rome. He's being very generous, and any senior who's in good standing will be able to win the car. It's actually in front of Holyoke High, like right by the digital sign. I passed it today. It's a pretty good car. And then there's also a campus learning center in the cafeteria. And I've seen a lot of my peers use this opportunity, as if they don't have a great space to work at home, like doing remote learning, they can go to the cafeteria and they're all spread out, and it's pretty good. I have a few kids in my classes every day. They're like in the cafeteria doing their thing. Then we've been celebrating students. Our 9th and 10th graders have howls, which are habits of work and learning. And their teachers actually pick every week who their howler of the week is, and they get some fun stuff. And then for the juniors and seniors, they get a lawn sign and they're picked by their teachers as well. So it's a nice honor. You get to talk to your teachers. They get to tell you what you did great that week. And the most important thing are that sports are back, and this is awesome. We're starting our second week of sports this week. I'm on the track team. It's been an awesome week. It's awesome to be back on the track. We've got football, we've got track, like I said, basketball, girls and boys, swimming, cheerleading, and yeah, they're kind of fall and then winter. And sports are gonna run from here until the start of spring break. So I'm really excited. That's really been the highlight of my week so far. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brennan, for the update at the North Campus. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Brennan or Ms. Puello? Mr. Sheehan.
Yeah, and I don't know if Ms. Brennan would be able to answer this, or if someone else, but so right now it's for sports, it's what, fall season 1 right now, and then winter. We're going to be offering spring sports, like probably what, baseball, men's volleyball, right? Those are normally spring sports.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure, but I believe I saw somewhere that Mass Live posted that a few days after spring and fall, or winter and fall too come, and that spring will start. But I mean, I don't know. It's up because we were in the yellow, and now we're in the yellow. We were in the red. So as long as we're good, I mean, hopefully I'll be able to play. I would love to play softball.
Right, softball is one, yeah.
Yeah, we the direction that we've met with the Board of Health, and they had cleared us that if we were in the yellow for 2 consecutive weeks, that we could start practicing, and then 3 consecutive weeks we could actually start playing. So the high school, we've been successful in that, and all the metrics are going in the right direction. So we're very excited to be getting some sports back in the high school.
And it's all non-tournament this year, right? Games?
I believe so, but I can certainly get the committee more information on that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? Hearing none. Okay, I just want to remind Ms. Brennan and Ms. Puello that as we go through the meeting, just like the other school committee members, if you guys have any questions or comments on any of the topics, please feel free, raise your hand using the icon. I monitor it, and that way, you guys are part of this meeting. You have a right to ask and comment, okay? Thank you so much for being here this evening with us. So we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna pass it over to our interim receiver, Mr. Anthony Soto. with the superintendent receiver reports.
Thank you, Ms. LaFave. So as we do every year in March, it's about that time where we have to review the budget and where we're at. The governor released the budget in the third week of January, and now's the time where we can start looking at where we're at in terms of revenue and working with all of our department heads and principals to develop our budget for next year. So we thought it was appropriate to give the committee an update, as we always do around this time of year. So what we're looking at this year is very unique. What happened this past year is the state tried to implement the Student Opportunity Act and wasn't able to after the pandemic. You know, initially they thought they were going to be able to implement it, and when the pandemic hit, that put a strain on the state's resources, and we received a cut mid-year, but we're able to sustain that with some ESSER funding. But luckily, or I wouldn't say luckily, but thankfully, the state is committed to moving forward with the Student Opportunity Act, and the governor has is moving in that direction. So this upcoming year will be the first year of a 7-year implementation. We saw a lot of feedback on how we should invest additional Student Opportunity Act funds last year. We had several community meetings. We had a school committee retreat where we discussed priorities. And we submitted a plan to the state on how we planned on using Student Opportunity Act dollars. What it looks like is we got a $3.5 million increase in our net school spending number, which is 3.9% of over last year. As many of you know, the Student Opportunity Act is more money for economically disadvantaged students. That's where we see the biggest increase. So districts like Holyoke and Springfield and communities that have a high population of economically disadvantaged students are going to benefit greatly from the Student Opportunity Act. Overall foundation enrollment has decreased by 198 students. You know, most of this drop is in the earlier grades like pre-K and K. Unfortunately, the state is using this year's enrollment numbers to fund us for next year. And I know there's push across the state for that there was going to be a drop in enrollment due to the pandemic. Our charter reimbursement increased by 1.2 million. And when we look at the graphic of revenue and expenses, you'll see an increase of 2.2 million in transportation, but really that is earlier this year, since there's savings in transportation, we transferred $2 million out of the budget because those were resources that we weren't paying out, given that we were mostly remote. So we're fully expecting to be fully in person next year. And that's why it looks like a $2.2 million increase, but it's really not as big as it looks. The one thing that is very unique to this year is that we are getting a significant amount of ESSER money. ESSER round 2, we're expecting to see about $16.5 million in additional revenue. So without that revenue, we would be looking at a $4 million deficit. But since we have that revenue, we're moving forward with a budget that is level service, and in fact, looking at ways at how we can invest this funding in a way that addresses the learning gap and addresses some of the trauma that a lot of our students have experienced during the pandemic. Moving to the next slide is a picture of our expenses. So preliminarily, we expect salaries to go up by 2.4 million on the general fund, supplies and services by 1.5 million, and health insurance is going up about 415,000. A lot of these are very high level assumptions. We do the best we can around before we start developing the budget to estimate what these are. We look at trend data. We work with the city's finance department to review a lot of these major accounts. And then charter and school tuition expenses are going up by 1.2 million, which represents a 9% increase. Next slide, please. So this just breaks down our revenue. I spoke about it on the first slide, but you can see that our revenue is going up about 3.9 million. And then on the next slide, you'll see that our expenses are going up by, can we move to the next slide, please? You can see that our expenses are going up by $7.8 million. So what, as I mentioned earlier, if we didn't have this ESSER funding, we would be looking to address a $3.9 million budget deficit. This is typical with, relatively flat revenue, although we did get an increase in Student Opportunity Act money this year, but increasing expenses and the fact that we have used one-time funding sources in the past to balance our budget. So 3.9 is usually typical, but this particular year, we have a lot of ESSER money that will be able to address this and then move forward with a balanced budget and a budget that we can actually look at ways we can invest to address the learning gap. We move to the next slide, please. This is the state budget timeline. So a lot of, the reason I always show this to the committee is because our budget relies heavily on state funding. So about 87% of our funding comes from the state Chapter 70, and only 13% of our budget comes from local tax dollars. So while other communities in the state, they might be done with their budget process, or they might not necessarily care what's going on at the state level because most of their money comes from local dollars, Holyoke's in a position where we really got to monitor what happens at the state and monitor every step of the way what changes are coming through the state budget because they have a huge impact on our budget. So right now where we're at is the governor released his budget and we're waiting for the House budget to be released, and then later this month the Senate Ways and Means will be released. Move to the next slide, please. And then usually at the end of June is when we really know exactly what we're getting. So again, this year, it's not as important this year because we know we're going to have enough funding to balance the budget. And in fact, we'll have more ESSER money. So this is a year where we can move forward with our budget development process and not pay attention too much to what's going on at the state level because we're pretty much balanced already. Can we move to the next slide, please? Following slide. Oh, keep going. So just to give an idea of where we're at in the budget development process, based on what the numbers that I just presented to you, chiefs were asked and department and budget department heads were asked to submit level service budgets. So what do we need to operate the same level of service that we had this past year? Then we'll start having individual budget hearings with each chief where they'll present what their budget is and any changes that they're requesting to their budget. The business office will continue to analyze these budget requests, look for duplicates. We'll continue to analyze all of our major accounts. And we're also going to be looking to solicit a lot of feedback on what our priorities should be. I met with TAG last week, late last week, and I had them fill out a survey, and cabinet filled out a survey. We're going to have all staff fill out a survey, families fill out a survey. I know that families have been surveyed out, so trying to be cautious around how many surveys we're doing, but it's really important to us to get feedback from the community, get feedback from all of our staff, get feedback from you all and other stakeholders on how we should be investing this new money that we're going to be getting. We will be seeing, it's going to be some challenging times with, remote learning and the impact that the pandemic has had on everyone. So we want to be really strategic and not create a scenario where, we implement a bunch of things that have to get. Yes.
For, just what does that stand for?
TAG is the teacher advisory group. So it's a group of teachers. I think I want to say there's anywhere from 10 to 15 teachers, and we meet with them on a monthly basis to discuss. They provide input to the superintendent. And this last meeting, we talked about the calendar, and we talked about the budget and got some feedback from them. Really good feedback. We will continue with this superintendent's budget advisory group. So what this group represents is a member of the school committee, a member of the city council, and members. We usually have a couple of principals and representatives from some of our bigger unions. And it's really a committee that's put together to advise the superintendent on any new investments that we should be looking at, or if we were in a position where we were looking to cut, they would help advise the superintendent on what areas we should look at and what areas we should stay away from. So it's been a pretty we've had this budget advisory committee for the last few years. Normally we've always looked at it as like we're in a position right now where we have to cut, and we need your feedback, and raise awareness of what the budget picture is for the upcoming year. But this year will be a little different because like I mentioned earlier, we're looking to get feedback on where we should be investing this federal funding that we're allocated now, and with the stimulus package that just passed, we will likely be looking at other revenue coming to the school. So it's important for us to get as much feedback as we can during this budget development process. Can we move to the next slide, please? So some final thoughts on the budget. Revenue looks better than it has in the past, especially with this ESSER funding. It's really promising that they're implementing the Student Opportunity Act. I'll be honest, I was really scared when the pandemic hit, and we got a lot of feedback on the Student Opportunity Act, and there were a lot of people put a lot of work into making that happen. And it was like, finally it's going to happen. And then the pandemic hits and it gets taken away. And I was very, very, very concerned, but it looks like the state's moving in that direction. And we'll have this ESSER money to be able to accelerate the Student Opportunity Act priorities in a way that, we don't want to create a funding cliff in 2 years. So hopefully we really are strategic with this additional funding that we have. And then in 2 years, when that funding goes away, hopefully there's enough Student Opportunity Act money to be able to continue some of the great things that we need to do for our students funding wise in the next couple of years. Anybody have any questions on the budget?
I don't see any hands raised for it, nor Mr. Collmore or Ms. Tensley Williams haven't come out to say anything, so no questions yet.
Okay. So the next topic we wanted to talk about was the middle school project. We realized that with the school committee, we haven't come back to the school committee to talk about or to provide an update on where we're at with the middle school project. After the November 19th failed vote, we really, I definitely feel like we should have come to you a lot sooner, but I'm glad that we have an opportunity right now to provide you with an update. So in January, the MSBA, after the failed vote, the MSBA encouraged us to apply for a new statement of interest for a new building. In the spring of 2020, the city council approved that. So we submitted a statement of interest in the spring, And instead of submitting it for 2 buildings, we submitted it for 1 middle school building. And then in the fall, we had met with the MSBA and folks from the MSBA, some city leaders, and overwhelmingly, like, the MSBA expressed that they would definitely support a plan for 1 building, but they really want to see that Holyoke is united and in terms of wanting this for the community, and that they have a clear financial plan. So with the mayor's help and Cinder from and Cinder, the financial advisor for the city, they were able to provide the MSBA with reports that would show that the city can in fact afford 1 middle school building and maintain the level of debt that they're at right now, because to me was a huge victory in terms of seeing this project move forward, because it's something that the MSBA had expressed wanting to see clearly in writing. And we did provide that both to the MSBA, and we provided that to the school committee, to each of you at the beginning of March. So, and then in January of 2021, we started to begin meeting with Holyoke leaders again, a couple of city councilors, a school committee member, some state legislators, and some folks on my team with Aaron Limvo kind of leading the work, and just getting feedback on how to make sure we're moving forward. The biggest thing that we have coming up is that in June, the MSBA is going to vote whether or not they're going to invite us into the program, and we could move forward with a feasibility study. We do have an opportunity next week, or actually this week, on Wednesday. We will be meeting with the joint city council and school committee subcommittee, where we'll provide a similar presentation and have a little more details. But I thought it was important to come to the school committee and just let you all know where we're at in the process. And if we are invited into the MSBA project and moving forward with a new building, the earliest that would possibly happen is fall 2025.
Are there any questions about the middle school project from anybody? Ms. Burks.
So I just have one question. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this. So this is something that's going to be bonded by the city. It's not going to need a vote of the people, or how does that work with it getting voted down? I want to make sure that we're really clear on that. So people in the public especially understand how it's moving forward.
Yeah, so I would, Anthony, do you mind if I chime in?
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think the voters were very clear in that we couldn't necessarily interpret the vote failing as a lack of support for new middle schools, but rather lack of support for the funding mechanism, which was essentially a tax increase. And the message was loud and clear. It was not a close vote. I think it was 65-35, and the voters sent a clear message for us to go back to the drawing board. And when we had to analyze our finances, perhaps we can pursue one school with the traditional way of paying for a project, and that's a traditional municipal bond. And so how we've funded any other MSBA project in the last 20 years, or perhaps longer, has been through a traditional bond, whereas the city council by 2/3 majority votes to bond for a project. The city pays for it on an annual basis over 30 years. That's part of our debt service. It's how we've paid for roofs, the $20 million at Holyoke High School, accelerated repairs. It's how we're buying equipment, fire trucks and new equipment for the DPW. So the people would not have an opportunity to vote on a debt exclusion override. This is the responsibility of the city council and the mayor to present that option to that body for their approval. And so that's why when Anthony mentioned Cinder being involved, she's our financial advisor that assesses our bond capacity and our outstanding projects. And she was able to show that our annual debt service today would be the same when we launch this project because so much debt is coming off of the city over the next 3 years. We're going down about $1.4 million in debt service just over the next 3 fiscal years. And even when we bond for I forget the total, 30-something million dollar project, and we put in the contribution from the school department, we've now been able to show both DOR and DESE and the MSBA that we are in a strong position to be able to afford such an investment. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but the short of it is that there wouldn't need to be a vote because it wouldn't be a tax increase directly tied to the construction.
So thank you for that answer, especially because I don't want there to be a lot of turmoil like there was in the city the last time around. So I think as much information as possible and being as transparent as possible is key, so that that kind of feuding doesn't start up again. The other question that I do have is with the new COVID stimulus and funding that's out there, is any of that money going to be available to put towards the new school? I know cities and towns are supposed to be getting some money. Is there anything from there that could also be used to be towards this project?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think Anthony will probably say something similar to what I would say. We are going to get, I mean, overall, just I think on the city side, direct municipal aid, we're looking at upwards of $31 million to come to the city of Holyoke, which is a very significant amount of money. And I will say that the parameters are not exactly laid out for municipal leaders, superintendents, or mayors, managers at this point. There is some general guidance. It seems like it will be more flexible than the CARES Act, and the CARES Act fund could only be used for direct impacts of COVID. But this is a pretty groundbreaking bill for cities and towns to, number one, plug revenue gaps. And so Holyoke, for example, we saw about $2.4 million reduction in local receipts and meals tax, hotels tax, property tax collection. We'll be able to plug those gaps moving forward. But then there's also a significant amount of money to go towards economic development, capital projects. And so I think, and it's also, the money's going to be required to be spent, I think, by the end of 2024. And so this is going to be a multi-year process by which we have to strategically figure out how we're going to spend this money to make the most impact in the community. And that can include, or the city shouldn't, in the weeks and months to come, if we can allocate some of those funds towards this. Just glancing at it, it looks like it would help, because if much of this money is general government aid in the general fund, if not going towards it directly, it's going towards it indirectly by lowering expenses elsewhere. So short answer, I think, is yes. And I just want the public and the committee to understand that this is a huge infusion of funds, $31 million to the city of Holyoke. We certainly haven't lost anything close to that in terms of lost revenue, but this bill, I think, was designed to address some of those needs, like the communities that Holyoke have, to really make an investment in the future. And to your point about the public being engaged specifically in this middle school, I would really encourage folks to tune in tomorrow, Wednesday night, to the joint meeting of the council and school committee to talk about the next steps. And we don't need to quite figure out what site it will be at yet. That is Lawrence or PreK. But it's going to be important for the school committee to raise their voices in terms of being part of that conversation. I know I have what I think is the best pathway forward for the city. I think leaders in the school department have a thought about that, but I think the school committee is going to play a really central role in the planning. And we can't yet create a school building committee that has teeth until we get the green light from the MSBA at their June meeting. And I would just be vocal with Acting Mayor Todd McGee if there's any committee members that want to be around the table at the school building committee, because we're going to have to start from scratch in terms of formulating that group.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Morse, for chiming in there. I couldn't have said it better myself. So the only thing I would urge Mayor Morse mentioned it, that funding does expire. We are looking out for more guidance on that, but I would just urge to be really strategic and not create a scenario where the funding goes away and we have to eventually cut service. So we have an opportunity in front of us to do some really good things. And just like Esser and on the school department side, the city will have some funding, and I'm sure that, you know, there would be some strategic thinking around the best use of all of those funds, to do it in a way that's sustainable for the city and for its residents. I do want to ask Erin if, you know, Erin's put a lot of work into this, and I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything, or if she has anything to add.
Thank you so much, Anthony and Mayor Morris. The only piece that I wanted to add was that we will be able to use a lot of the work that we did before, which is good. So Mayor Morris consulted with Lori Bellinger, the Chief Procurement Officer, who's consulted with the IG's office, and we can still retain the services of the OPM, the Owner's Project Manager, who we were using before, and the architect. So that means that we can, since we're looking at one school building that's the same size, like we can do as much as we want in terms of continuing with the same design of the school, if that's what the group wants, in order to make the process go by faster and at a lower cost of money. But if there are points that people want to revisit, we can do that as well. And I just want to really just express appreciation for this group of Holyoke leaders that's been meeting bi-weekly, and also for and Mayor Morris, who got a lot of traction on the financing side, and then Anthony's been my partner on this even before I was really working on it closely with Dr. Wright too. So it's great to have him as the interim superintendent who knows so much about the project. Thank you, everybody.
And I would just add to that, and you know, Erin deserves a lot of appreciation on top of everything else on her plate. She's been putting a lot of time and energy into this, convening all of us here in the local level, and being a really great task, keeping us all on track. And it's been really great to have her organizing folks. And Erin, I just wanted to thank you for all you've done over the last several months and several years, really, but to help move this along recently.
Oh, thank you. That's so meaningful. I really appreciate it, Alex.
So the next slide is an update to the school committee on our PreK8 portfolio. So as many of you know, in 16-17, we did a listening tour, and, you know, with Dr. Reich, myself, Erin, the family engagement team. We've had a bunch of meetings around the city to solicit feedback in conjunction with the middle school building project, but also just talking about the middle school experience and working with the middle school redesign team. Overwhelmingly, the community's preference at the time was, when we were doing this a few years ago, was to move towards an elementary, middle school, and high school model. As it stands right now, we have 11 schools with 10 different grade configurations. Yeah, I said that. 11 schools with 10 different grade configurations. So really, that is something that we've started to begin unraveling a little bit. So we partially had Donahue turn into an elementary school, and then Metcalf is actually growing as a dual language program. But back in 18, we opened 2 new middle schools. One of them was Holyoke STEM, and the other one was Veritas Prep. That allowed Morgan, Ian White, and to fully become PreK 4, and then Kelly to partially convert to elementary middle school. So this year, I believe Kelly has an 8th grade class, and then next year they won't have a middle school anymore. And then even after Kelly is fully converted to elementary, we'll have Veritas at grades 5 to 8. So even after all of that work, we'll still have I want to say 7 different grade configurations for 11 schools. So this is work that we had started, And I'm hoping to continue this conversation with the school committee and with the community, because, you know, we're headed in a direction. We started this work. We were hoping to get 2 new middle schools. That has since changed. Now we're looking at getting 1 new middle school. But either way, we have to start, you know, this is what the community expressed to our team a few years ago, and we've started moving in that direction. And we got to start engaging in the conversation on what we're going to do with our schools and our portfolio work, whether or not we have a building, because we've already started moving in that direction. So I'm not sure if we're going to answer these questions, or if the school committee thinks it's a good idea to have a retreat around this. But I really, you know, we have some guiding questions in front of us that we'd like some feedback from the committee. One of them is, what questions do you have or feedback do you have on the middle school project or the pre-K to 8 portfolio work that we have going on? We want to get some advice from you on how we move forward with both of these things. And then also, when we did get the failed vote in November and it didn't go through, a lot of people in the community had expressed, in the no camp, had expressed that we didn't do a good job getting feedback. You know, I tend to disagree with that personally, because I was at 25 plus meetings myself where we went to the library, we went to different schools, different areas of the community to solicit feedback. So I'm wondering if you have advice for us on how could we do this better? How could we solicit meaningful feedback so that we don't go down a path where folks think that we didn't solicit the right feedback? Those are the 4 guiding questions that we have for the committee. Again, I don't know that we need to get answers on all of these, but I'd appreciate if you do have any feedback for us that you provide it either now or in writing in the future. Does anybody have any questions on either the middle school project or our pre-K to 8 portfolio work?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Tinsley Williams.
This question is directed to Mr. Soto. March 12th, when we got notification that the PK students went remote, did you find out anything about that, and when can they go back in person, or are they still remote?
Yeah, I think that's the topic we're going to cover in the next section. So
Okay.
If you don't mind, Ms. Tinsley. And returning to school, we didn't have students go full remote. In fact, we started implementing more of a hybrid model, and the commissioner released guidance to all districts saying that by April 5th, we're going to have to bring back all K to 5 students in either a remote model completely or 5 days per week full in-person model, with changing some of the requirements that they had released. So we'll cover that in the next section.
Thank you. I can wait for the presentation. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Soto?
Mr. Wellahan?
Mr. Wellahan.
Thank you. Maybe just an idea for the outreach moving forward. We can probably maybe have some of the meetings held virtually through the Zoom. That might be able to probably maybe garner more attendance and probably more of the parents.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has any questions?
I have
I'm
a
kind
question.
of looking. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Christian, but I'm looking here in the chat. Just make sure to use the raise hand icon so that way I don't miss anybody, because I only get to see 5 people at a time. So I don't want to miss anybody if they're raising their hand. Go ahead, Mr. Kershane.
So if we have something in writing we'd like to submit, who should we submit that to? Whose attention?
You could submit it to myself and Aaron Linville, please.
Okay, got it.
If people wouldn't mind if I quick chimed in, I also wanted to say, besides like starting this work 5 years ago or so, Anthony and I also attended a lot of Dr. V's listening tours, and this theme of how are we going to move forward to distinct elementary and middle schools still really came out through all the stakeholder groups. So it's confirming to know that this is still a big interest and need of the community, and then it's upon us all together as leaders to really map out the way that we're going to do this that minimizes disruption to the extent possible for students and teachers, and sets forth like a good long-term plan that's financially sustainable and educationally makes sense for kids. So I know there's not just one right way to do this, and really are looking forward to people's input. We definitely need many minds on this important topic.
So I don't see any further questions or any further hands raised.
Great. So we want to move forward to talk about our hybrid planning and return to in-person. Ms. Tinsley Williams, this is the portion of the presentation where I said we would bring it up. So first we wanted to, and I may have Valerie chime in and come off camera in case folks have any questions. But I wanted to recognize that we had our first in-person day of school for a lot of our pre-K and K students. We welcomed 275 students that hadn't been in person since last year. It was amazing. I was able to get out to almost every school, if not that first week, the second week, and it was just beautiful to watch. I mean, our students were so happy to be back in school. Our staff were just really resilient in stepping up to the challenges that having in-person students and remote students pose. It was just overall a success. I mean, the fact that I didn't get one call at a time where it's the first day of school for many of our students, it's just a testament to all the hard work that our team has put into this hybrid planning, and all the hard work that our principals and our teachers have put into making sure that we can successfully integrate more students back into the in-person model. Next slide. So after pre-K and K had returned, we thought that it was important to survey and get feedback from our families, get feedback from our schools, to see if there was anything that we could learn from. You know, we started with pre and ultimately the rest of our elementary students. So overwhelmingly, the feedback was that the students love going to school. They feel safe. The families expressed that they feel safe sending their children to school. The schools were clean, safe, and welcoming. And 88% of the survey responses reported that there were no transportation issues. And then from schools, a lot of principals, teachers have expressed that they were really excited to have students back. And overall, it was a great start, and everybody's happy to be in school. We do realize that live streaming is a bit of a challenge, and it's going to take a lot of getting used to, but I really just want to commend all of our teachers that are doing it. They're stepping up like champions, and you know, they're starting, you know, sooner than many other teachers are starting, but they're really giving us good feedback that their peers can learn from, that we can learn from, and we're taking all of that feedback and making sure that we can make it better for when we start introducing more students. We started, so as you all know, we're doing a phased-in approach to a full return to hybrid learning. On March 8th, we were able to welcome 357, well, not all 357, but the week of March 8th, we had 357 first and second graders come into a hybrid model. So Monday and Tuesday, half of them went, and then Thursday and Friday, the other half. We plan on next week welcoming our third, fourth, and fifth graders. And based on the survey responses that we got and confirmation from families, we expect there to be an additional 369 students that we're going to welcome back in those grades that haven't stepped foot in the school since last year. So it's just amazing that and everybody's happy that they get to see their students. And then in grades 6 to 8, we're running on starting March 29th. We're going to be running the campus learning centers for our middle schoolers. And then we plan, based on the governor's or the commissioner's guidance, we plan on bringing them back on April 26th. There's going to be, the campus learning centers aren't always going to be run by the teachers themselves. So those spaces are going to be used by whoever is going to be assisting with the learning center. And then I believe the Friday before April vacation, we're going to have a full asynchronous day for all students so that teachers can get into their classrooms, since they're going to be used by these campus learning centers. They'll be able to get into their classrooms and set up right before the break so that we can welcome all of our middle schoolers, all the middle schoolers that choose to come back in person, that we could welcome them right after the April break. And currently we have about 65 high school students that are continuing to participate in the campus learning centers that one of our student reps just talked about at the beginning of the meeting. And eventually, I know the plan is to transition the high schools into at least a hybrid model starting later in the spring, but we have to monitor what guidance DESE is going to be releasing, because they did promise to get us some guidance in April on what they expect us to do for high schools. So as I mentioned earlier, and as Ms. Tinsley Williams mentioned, we did receive guidance from the state that we are, and this isn't just Holyoke, this is everyone across the state, is expected to start bringing students in person in grades K to 5, and starting that on April 5th. The expectation is that we bring back middle schools on middle school students in person on April 26th. And then, like I said before, they're going to be giving us more guidance on what the expectations are for high schools. So once we got this guidance, we worked with the Board of Health, and I appreciate Sean and his team for coming here today and fielding any questions that folks may have. Is that we got to get students back in. They are loosening up a little bit on the spacing requirements. So as long as students can be spaced at least 3 feet apart from each other and wearing masks, then we can safely bring them into schools. We work with the Board of Health. We meet with them on a weekly basis, and they've reviewed all of our plans. They've toured all of our schools. They've helped to develop our contact tracing process, and they looked at everything we're doing in our schools, all the air quality work, the cleaning that we're doing, and all of our protocols. And it's just a blessing to have them as partners on this work. And they've approved our plans to move forward. They're still gonna we'll still have to schedule some more walkthroughs so that when our buildings are set up, our classrooms are set up 3 feet apart, they're able to just make sure that they walk through some of the buildings that they hadn't walked through since the summer. So we focused on, the last round of walkthroughs that we did were the ones that had grades starting in pre-K and K. So there were a couple of schools that they still have to get to, and we're gonna we're also just supporting our school leaders. I definitely want to commend all of our principals. This, when this news came down from the state, one thing that was very clear in meeting with our principals is that this is going to be an all hands approach, all hands on deck approach, and that they're the boots on the ground. The principals are the ones that know their buildings better than anybody. They know their students, they know what their needs are, and it's just amazing to see our building leaders step up and take on this monumental task. Like I want to commend them for that, and stress that we've already done a lot of the planning, and we're going to be leveraging that, but there's still a lot of logistics that we have to work out. When we have more kids in the building, we have to figure out what happens if there's more than one kid in a isolation room, or if there's not space in the isolation room, what we do with those. We have to figure out how to properly serve our meals, considering that although students will be 3 feet apart with masks on, when you're eating, you don't have a mask on. And that's still a requirement, is when you don't have a mask on, and when you're eating, students have to be spaced out 6 feet apart. And then working through staffing, we want to work really hard over the next couple of weeks to make sure that we have the same teachers that are working right now in front of our students when we welcome them in April. In early April.
Quick question.
Okay, Ms. Tensley Williams.
Yes, I just have a quick question. Does all the teachers have to have their shots, or any of the students, or is it necessary that the teachers all have the vaccine?
It's encouraged, but it's not a requirement to come back to in person. So, okay. We have partnered with the Holyoke Health Center, and we're going to be putting on some vaccination clinics just for our staff. I believe the date is March 26th and April 24th. If I got that wrong, so I think it's March 27th, sorry, and April 24th. So that those 2 days are where we're looking at a location, and we're trying to identify where we're going to house it. We're looking at Dean potentially being one of the locations where we hold our vaccination clinics. But I've also been, it will be at Dean. I've also been, I did a video last week and sent it out on the Holyoke update. I'm encouraging anyone who wants to get the vaccine, if they can get it on their own. I was able to secure an appointment for tomorrow. So tomorrow, I'll be going to the Whitney Ave site and getting my vaccination. Even if folks responded to the survey and the survey that we put out that will allow them to get a vaccination as part of our the clinics that we're going to be working with Holyoke Health Center, even if you did fill out that survey, we're still encouraging staff that if they can get an appointment sooner than that, to go right ahead. Those vaccinations won't go to waste. Holyoke Health Center will put them to good use.
Great, thank you.
Real quick, the staff, what staff are we including in this?
Any of our Holyoke public school staff would be able to receive a vaccine.
So all departments?
Yeah, all staff.
Okay, great.
I think all you have to show is an HPS ID and your license.
Thank you. Mr. Wallahan.
Thank you. There's a follow-up question. Do you have a percentage of the teachers that have received their vaccinations? Do you have like a percentage of them? And have you done any surveys moving forward from requesting or seeking out both the staff and the teachers on how many would be willing to be vaccinated?
I don't have information of how many staff have been vaccinated, because as I mentioned, they could be going to CVS They could be, it's not information that I think we're tracking. Marianne, you can correct me if I'm wrong if you're on the call. But to answer your question on the survey, yes, we released a survey that closed last week, March 8th. We surveyed all of our staff and asked them to sign up. It was going to allow us to get information over to Holyoke Health Center so that they can place an order for the Moderna vaccine on our behalf. I don't have the exact number, but I think Marianne's having, okay, Marianne's here.
As long as I don't cut out. So absolutely, I've been having a little internet connectivity problems tonight. So we sent out a survey and we had 871 responses. At the time, we had 652 staff indicate that they were interested in receiving the vaccination through Holyoke Health Center. We had 127 staff report that they had already received their vaccination, and then about 64 responses of folks that were just not interested. Maybe they had already been making an appointment elsewhere. We're not requiring staff to provide that information, but this has given us a good snapshot of how many of our staff had already been vaccinated, and again, over 600 that were indeed interested in the clinic with the Holyoke Health Center, and they're able to provide 600 doses. So we have been using it's called a block-it appointment system. So that had been opened up initially to the staff that responded to the survey and said yes, that they wanted to be scheduled. So they received the ability to schedule first. They received that on Friday. And then the rest of HPS staff, it was pushed out this afternoon at 4 o'clock. We still had almost 300 slots still available at that point. It was opened up to the entire district. Anyone else that wanted to sign up for one of those 600 slots that we have available.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sheehan.
Yeah, so can't at least for the community, the people who live in Holyoke, doesn't the Board of Health track how many vaccinated people there are? I mean, it would just be helpful to a district to try to at least kind of keep numbers on how many people are vaccinated if they're willing to self that. I know for students, we're doing that for the flu shot. I just recall them talking about how there was that system that allowed us to look all of that information up to see if students were vaccinated. It just seems like something that would be helpful as the district to see if we are maintaining higher vaccination levels as a district, especially if we extra and cutoff point for these too, like that the Holyoke Health Center is going to say we're opening it up to the general population.
So I can answer some of that. We have not been tracking individual vaccinations to this point. It's until we have these clinics for the teachers, and we have an information of vaccine Q&A that's coming up on Thursday of this week for public school staff. It's just sort of still very much up in the air. Vaccine eligibility only open for teachers on the 11th. So I do think moving forward, we can track those numbers, but for now, it's just, I'm not sure how much information we'd be able to gather from that data on the 4th day of eligibility and without having a couple of clinics open. I think once we start to get a little bit further into it or start to get, I know that the school just sent around the surveys for having people sign up for the health center clinics. We could start to draw, but at this point, we haven't tracked it. And as for the eligibility, the state has really encouraged vaccine providers only to schedule doses that are assigned. And so these doses that the school has signed on with the health center, I don't think are going to be compromised by an increase in eligibility outside. So if they move on into the next phase of eligibility, which would be step 3 of this second phase, it's not going to jeopardize the teacher's access, if that's what you were asking.
No, it's actually the opposite of from what I think Ms. Courier was talking about, that they've had, that maybe people haven't been making the appointments quick enough, so the blocks have been readily available. I mean, is there a cutoff point that we're saying for staff, like, we're providing this because you've asked for it? I mean, there's also a lot of people waiting for vaccine appointments that may not work for the district. So I just don't want us holding all of these if staff aren't going to go get it done. That's the point I'm making with that.
I mean, I can always check with the health center. I would not believe so. They're receiving their allotments on a weekly basis because you're not allowed to hold vaccine for more than 10 days. So if there were to be a large block of unappointments that were unaccounted for by the time that this first scheduled clinic came up, they wouldn't go to waste. I certainly don't think that the health center would just sit on them until the end. So, you know, if people do get these elsewhere, you know, if they decide to take advantage of a clinic that happens sooner, we can definitely encourage people to let us know. But they have a call down list that they keep at all times for all of their clinics. So if they have no shows, doses don't go to waste. So they have a list of eligible people that might be waiting and or don't have a vaccine yet. And we also have one of those at the senior center through the Holyoke Council on Aging. And so I don't think any doses would go to waste.
No, I can answer that a little bit as well, because as we've been scheduling with the health center, and I see Cynthia pop on too, that there's also been some outreach to some of the other schools in the city. So we have been working with the health center, but we've also been working with Principal Fitzgerald up at Blessed Sacrament. I know she expressed an interest in getting her staff vaccinated. So once our staff has had the ability to sign up and there are still open appointments, then the folks at the health center already have sort of a next step of, okay, how many appointments do we have available that we could offer up to staff at some of the other schools in the city. But Cynthia,
yeah,
go ahead and jump in. I know you have the information.
Exactly. Thank you. Well said, Mary Ann. And I just wanted to say as well that as the appointments are being made, the appointments go directly into the system in Holyoke Health Center. Anytime they can just click right onto that and see how the appointments are filling up and what the availability is as well. So we're working really close with them on that, and absolutely none of them will go to waste.
Okay, thank you.
Mildred.
Ms. Tensley Williams.
Yes, on your regular telephone, you can dial 211 and you can get signed up for yours. I'm waiting for my shot. They'll put your name on the list, and if you get your shot elsewhere, just call them back and tell them that you're all set. But all you do is just dial 211.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tensley Williams.
You're welcome, honey.
Just looking here, I don't see any other questions. Just real quick, Mr. Soto. This the last slide in regards to your back to school.
This is the second to last slide. The last point I wanted to make on this back to school is I really want to make a plea to families that we have a survey that's due March 17th. Please fill it out. We really, your feedback is super important in our planning. That survey is you letting us know if you are going to decide to go fully remote or if you are going to decide to go fully in person 5 days a week. That information is really, really important to us, and it's going to help us with our planning and making sure that whatever we do moving forward, that we can do it safely. This slide here is just giving a quick update on what the state has done for MCAS. I know initially there were plans to take MCAS really soon, and the state had decided to push those dates back. So what you see in front of you is that they're still thinking of moving forward with MCAS administration for grades 3 to 8, and the dates are 3, 4, and 5 ELA, math, and STE will be May 10th through June 11th, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th. Those testing dates are yet to be determined. They're also talking about like doing half of the amount of testing. I was on a call with the urban superintendents where that was a hot topic for the day. And then tentatively, the windows for high school are May 3rd through June 4th, and then June 1st through June 11th. The last section on the agenda is just a COVID update, and an update on some of the health metrics. So one of the things I want to say is that it's been 7 weeks in a row that we've seen all of the health metrics trend in the right direction. We've been in the yellow for quite some time, but if Marianne and Cynthia could come on camera and provide this update to the school committee, please.
Sure. Thanks, Anthony. So as we already mentioned, the COVID survey did go out to all HPS staff, and that was on March 4th, and we had a great return, as Marianne has already addressed, and we've already talked about partnering with Holyoke Health Center. Right now, our project focus has been looking at the Abbott Binax Now rapid antigen diagnostic test, not just for symptom testing for our nurses to perform to students and staff at school, but also the consents have gone out for the pool testing program for both students and staff. And so that's the current focus right now, and we've made great progress with that. And Marianne, did you want to talk more about the pool testing piece of it?
Sure. So again, we're one of the districts that were able to participate in pooled testing. I know we spoke about this a little bit, I believe, at the last meeting, but so the purpose of this is surveillance testing, so that we would be able to have groups of individuals, students and staff that are in one pool, one group, that would be swabbed, and their test would be sent out. And then if anyone tested positive in that pool, then we would use the Binax testing that the nurses are able to perform to then determine who it was positive in that group. It allows for broader testing, so that way, because each individual test, it has a cost associated with it. So if you're able to put 10 tests within one, you're paying for that one test, but it's a system that's in place to be able to do surveillance testing to hopefully catch those cases where it might be a student or staff that is asymptomatic, but is actually positive. So we will be rolling that out first at both of our high school campuses and our transitions academy, and then moving down to our middle school programs and then elementary programs. So we have been matched with a vendor to help us get this work off the ground. So again, the first step was getting out consents. So we will be receiving those consents in from staff and families. And then in the very near future, we will be setting up our actual first testing dates. So we're very excited that this is going to be starting very soon.
Thank you so much. Anthony, is there still more to the COVID update?
Yeah, Cynthia or Marianne, you want to go through the metrics?
Sure. I think that it is quite striking to be out of the red and into the yellow. It's nice seeing that yellow, and we can see for 3 consecutive periods we've been in the yellow now, and you can see that our trend is in fact downward. and it's coming down slowly, but it is coming down. At 201 was our case count as of the 11th, and we've had 35.3 cases per 100,000 of our population. And then finally, our positivity rate is 3.86, also down from 4.29 from the week before. So we're lower all around, and we do see our cases within the schools lessening as well. Last week we had just a little over a dozen, 13 cases last week, which compare that to 3 weeks ago, we had 26. So you can see how it's come down greatly from just a couple weeks ago. So we're just so relieved and so grateful to see these kinds of numbers now. Thank you, Anthony.
One more slide, Cynthia.
And so this one, we're just looking at the excuse me, what it looks like month by month. And so you can see very clearly here in December and January how high our cases were, topping out over 113 there. And now we've cut that more than in half for our cases. And so the tall bar, you can see the 48, those are our remote student cases. And then our in-person student cases is the light blue bar to the left of that. In-person staff, we're at 13 cases for February, and then finally 5 for our remote staff in February. So it just gives a really nice visual to see how well that we are doing right now.
Okay, are there any questions from anyone? Is there any questions, comments? No, okay. So I do have a question. I know that we keep emphasizing, you know, it's great that all of the ones that are testing positive are the ones that are remote. That's great. Great that we're gonna go down, but always remember, those that choose to come back when you have more people in, right? It's just like that other thing. Well, there wouldn't be so many positive people if you didn't have everybody testing. This is the same thing. It's remote right now because obviously that's where the majority of the people are, is remote. But when you come back inside, what happens, right? That's a different story. So you're not going to be praising on numbers if it does happen that the majority are the ones that become positive are the ones that are in person. But that, put it to the side anyways. So there's going to be a lot of questions, Mr. Soto, but because I'm thinking of a tentative meeting, special meeting somewhere, so hopefully everybody can put on their calendar for March 29th, where you're going to have more feedback. And I'm going to assume that you would have heard at least from 90% of the families. I don't know if you're going to hear from all 100%, but at least 90% of who's definitely coming back full time. Reason being, because I want you to emphasize on what would happen if everybody from a specific classroom, right? Everybody says, yes, I'm sending back my kids. Or let's say that one specific school, everybody's saying, yes, I'm sending my kids back. But yet we have the restrictions on distancing. So obviously it's not 6. Now they're saying it's 3 and it's mid-chair to mid-chair. If you can't get everybody in the classroom like before, remember we used to have 24 students in a class, we used to have 29. What happens then? Right? What happens if they all decide to come back for that specific school? Are you gonna, not like we have a lot of rooms available. So would it be now somewhere where we wouldn't be able to open up a certain school? And the reason why I ask these questions is because you see, while everybody else across this Commonwealth has the ability to have local control and to be able to make those local decisions, here in Holyoke, we don't have that ability. So the state, it's actually, you know, you can say that you're going to go ahead and write in a waiver, but at the end of the day, what for? They make the decision. And obviously the commissioner has already said what he wants. He expects all schools to open 5 days a week. He was nice enough to allow for families to make a choice, but districts technically should be opening up 5 days a week. So if we look at that, where there comes to a point where we don't have enough space to put in everybody because now we can't meet the measurement requirements to fit everybody in, now I look at that as an equity issue, right? Because now if everybody can't go that wanted to go, then what's going to be the next decision? I mean, Bessie talks a lot about equity. That's why they want to do this so bad, like in a 3-week period of time, but yeah, we're still waiting for what they expect to be done and how it should be moving forward. But they made that decision about a week and a half ago. So there's going to be a lot of questions, and plus transportation, how's that going to look? What are times going to look like, especially when you have more and more students coming back? Staggering of times on that. So, I mean, those are just things that I want to put out there, people to think about. I'm not going to expect you to answer everything right now, but just think of where my mind is going, because I want to be, again, transparent, right? So that everybody's aware of what's going to be done, how it's going to be done, and if this can't be done, then why can't it be done? So that's about it. And the thing about the COVID update, at this point, I'm happy to see that our city, I mean, maybe if we look at it that way, where our city's at, but the part of what we're reporting for students testing positive and stuff, just give the numbers. Praising, don't praise yet. So that'll be all. Does anybody have anything else to say? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Soto.
I just wanted to respond. So far we've received 1,888 responses to the survey, and 65% of those responses are choosing to come in person. And to answer your question, if we were in a situation where it wasn't safe to do so, we would file a waiver. But I'm feeling very confident that that we're not going to be in that position, and that we'll be able to safely space out students and not be in a position where we have to file a waiver. I will say that it's no longer a local decision. So like Holyoke's not unique in that sense, just because they're in receivership. What the governor and what the board gave authority to the commissioner is to basically take away that local decision piece of it. So it's basically requiring districts to offer in person as an option for families. And if you don't offer it as an option for families, then student learning time doesn't count in a hybrid and remote model. And there is a waiver process, but the commissioner was very clear in that any district that files a waiver, if it's for reasons that you mentioned, so spacing or anything like that, they're going to send a team of folks to look at. So they're not just going to blindly approve a waiver. They're giving us 5 days. They're promising a decision in 5 days as to whether or not your waiver is approved. But what they're planning on doing is sending a team of individuals to take a look at those while you're applying for the waiver, take a look at it, and then help you troubleshoot around that issue. So in that scenario, so we have the luxury of having a lot of like bigger elementary sized classrooms. So a lot of our classrooms are very large. There is one school that I'm concerned with. Lawrence School tends to have smaller classrooms. So that is something that we're going to be looking at, and I share your concern in terms of making sure it's equitable, but I'm pretty confident that based on the responses that we have gotten, that we'll be able to comply with the guidance that DESE has set forth without having to apply for a waiver. Districts that will likely qualify for a waiver are districts that haven't had not one student in person since the beginning of the year. The one that I could think of like that is our neighbors over in Springfield. They would likely qualify for a waiver. I'm not sure if they're going after it, but they haven't had any students at all in person all year. That was the biggest example that the state provided in their guidance in terms of when they would likely approve a waiver. Holyoke doesn't fall in that boat. As you know, as everybody on the committee knows, we've had 800 kids in person since the beginning of the school year. So, and we've been slowly introducing. By the time March 29th rolls around, we'll already have middle schoolers in person, even though they'd be in a learning center model. But we're going to have a significant amount of students that their families are choosing to be in person, already in person by the time April 5th rolls around. Now, whether or not families change their mind, whether they were, there could be some families that were comfortable at 6 feet in a hybrid model and might not be comfortable at 3 feet 5 days a week. But I have a feeling that it'll be in the other direction, where families said no to the hybrid model because it was only 2 days. But now that it's a 5-day option and more regular and easier for them, I have a feeling more of our families would want to, and that's just a gut feeling. I'm really going to analyze the survey data, and looking forward to providing you and the rest of the committee with an update on March 29th.
Thank you so much. I do see Mr. Gonsalves' hand. He's from the Board of Health.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say that I'm really confident in the school's ability to make this a safe environment for students. I'm not going to say that the 3-foot change isn't going to be a challenge. I think it's a new standard, and there are going to be a little bit of a learning curve anytime that you have a change in your protocol. But we are definitely not alone. It is a statewide change, and I've said this before, but I really do think that surveying some of our neighbors in the situations that are in communities surrounding us, that we're in a really good place. I think the plan that we have in place before the announcement was made is similar enough in scope that some of these changes that we're encountering only require modifications to the plan as opposed to a drastic rewrite. And so I just think we were on better footing and we were a little bit more prepared. And I mean, while we're going to have to make some lemonade out of these lemons, I don't think that we're going to face the uphill battle that a lot of other communities are. And having students in person and having the campus learning model or campus learning center model, and having in-person learning, and having gone through some of the learning pods that we had in place, it gave us a lot of opportunities to fine tune our response and our protocols. And every week, we continue to try to improve the response that we have, to tighten some of just the guidance that is issued for the schools, or guidance for after school activity, or guidance for now we're encountering breakfast in the classroom that wasn't normally a concern in the way that it is with the 3 feet of distancing and more students. And so we're always looking at ways to fine tune and keep things safe. And I just want to say that I'm very confident, and I'm very grateful for the school department for having such a two-way communication with the Board of Health. And I really do think that Holyoke is lucky to be where we are.
Thank you so
much. And thank you to your whole team too, Sean. Your team's been incredible. Betsy, everyone on your team has just been amazing in helping us get to where we're at on behalf of our students and families.
Yeah, and if I could say, I do want to thank Betsy and Debbie. Debbie is the public health nurse. Betsy is one of our sanitarians, our inspectors. They've been going out and doing tandem inspections in the schools. So you don't just have the one perspective of an inspector, you also have a public health nurse. Debbie is a former public school employee as well, so she's very familiar with the the facilities. And, it's good to have another set of eyes and outside perspective. So it's not just creating rules and saying that, okay, these rules are good because we made them. There's a lot of time for reflection and outside perspective to see what ways we can improve, even if things are already working, ways to make things better or ways to make things work a little bit more smoothly. So always evolving and in the response to kind of an ever-changing situation.
And I do see Miss, and I don't want to say her name wrong, Miss Cher, if that's correct.
I just wanted to say that I've been working with Cynthia for a year now regarding COVID cases in the school. And I have to say that we have such an open line of communication. We speak weekly with the Holyoke Public School webinar that we have. She and I speak daily, multiple times during the day. We even speak at night if needed. We speak on the weekends. So anytime a case comes up regarding a teacher, a para, a cafeteria worker, a bus driver, a student, anything at all, we're in constant communication, Sundays, Saturdays. And so we try to be on top of this. And I was just saying to Sean today, I think I listened to other area boards of health, and I have to say, I think we're right on top of things as best as we can be. I'm optimistic that we have such progress working with the school department in every avenue that we could possibly think of.
Thank you so much, and that's great to hear, the amount of work that you guys are doing together. Is there any, Mr. Sheehan?
Yeah, I just want to point out too, and maybe I missed this before, but I think the unique experience too of Deb Shire as being a former public school nurse as well. I think back to the days, I mean, she was my nurse at Tech, but I also think she was at the high school recently too. So I think probably definitely helps in our efforts with that and that knowledge of working knowledge of how our systems work also.
Mr. Collmore, did you have something you wanted to ask or share?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. A couple of things. Thank Tony for a wonderful presentation this evening. I really appreciate this. But I have a couple of concerns pertaining to the health department after April 5th continue to work with us to make sure that every school has a nurse or someone that will help us out in case of any problems in the schools?
So it's Sean from the Board of Health. We will continue to work with the schools as long as schools are in session, continuing to do inspections, repeat inspections as, we're going to be phasing more students in. So we'll continue to do inspections of the same facilities sort of spaced out on repeat so that we can keep up with the challenges as they present themselves. And then, we'll always be in touch with the schools. So Cynthia is our point person, but we also talk to the nurses at the individual schools. And then when the school year ends during the summer, we'll have time to plan and get ready for full in-person learning in the fall. So there's not going to be any, no pause between our collaboration.
Yes. Tony, just one other question. For April 5th, will the staffing be okay? We won't have to.
Mr. Collmore, if you turn down your television set, you wouldn't be getting the feedback on the voice.
I did want to.
It's a little better, Mr. Collmore, yes.
Yes, Tony, just to get back on that, I'd like to find out staffing. Will you have any problem for staffing for April 5th?
That is that is probably the number one thing that the district, that's probably the heaviest lift that we have this this upcoming couple of weeks. We is taking a look at all the accommodations and working with school building principals to make sure that we're in a good place with staffing. I'll add that because we anticipate more students coming in person, I've approved hiring a nurse that we planned on hiring next year. So we've already posted for that nursing position, an additional RN, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from principals that this contact tracing process that allows us to be able to do everything that we do safely is a real heavy lift on the principals. And whenever there's a close contact, and Debbie mentioned that over the weekend she hears from Cynthia. In addition to the Board of Health and Cynthia working collaboratively, the principals have a lot of work to do once there's a positive case or when there's a suspected case. We're hiring an LPN to hopefully alleviate some of the burden from the principals having to do a lot of that communicating. So we're going to have a dedicated LPN that's going to be doing nothing but helping with our contact tracing process, which we feel is super important in making sure that we could do this safely.
Thank you very much, Doug.
So I don't see any further hands up. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Soto, for the report. There's still 2 other updates in there. Did you want to speak on them?
Can you refresh my memory what they are?
According to this, unless there's a more updated one, I have the school lunch program update and the graduation 2021 update.
Okay, on the school lunch, what I'll say is that we, with this transition to more students in person, our food service team is going to be working really hard to make sure that students that are in person get a good experience and have the right meals in place. In addition to continuing to running our food sites, we are looking, since there's going to be more students in person, we're going to be looking at potentially consolidating. So we're analyzing where we have like really low distribution points, and if we have to, we may be closing a site if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, we're not going to do it. I will say that we're having issues with staffing. I met with our team a couple of days ago, and a lot of the staff that we are calling in to come back to work, we're having a hard time either getting a hold of them or they have found a job somewhere else. So one of the things that we're looking at right now is trying to get cafeteria workers to come back to work, and then even new ones, like hiring new ones, so that we have the right amount of staff in our schools. Some of our schools are, they're spread thin right now with the way we're running our model, but we are fully committed to making sure that each school is properly staffed to be able to do this food service program the right way when we move into a different model. And then on the graduation, I just wanted to provide the committee with an update that we are putting a graduation task force together. I hate to call it a graduation task force because they're going to be talking about more than just graduation. It's really planning for our seniors and some of the events that we have coming up. So we're going to have that task force together. Mrs. Burks is representing the school committee on that task force. It's going to be comprised of obviously the building principals, a couple of student parents, and a couple of seniors from each campus. We do think that it's important to hear from our students, and we want to make sure. Oh, and a very key member of that group is also the Sean from the Board of Health. As you guys know, last year there were issues with how the graduation was planned, and whether or not the Board of Health was involved, but we want to get it right this time. We realized that, we don't want to see a fumble like we did last year in terms of what we were planning on doing and what we ended up doing. So I'm glad that Mrs. Burks is going to be on there representing the school committee, and I'm confident that between now and then we'll be able to put a plan together that our students will be happy to see.
Thank you so much, Ms. Burks.
So I'm super excited that this committee is going to get put together for the seniors. The only question I do have, Anthony, is where are we looking timeline for getting this started? Just because we're, mid-March right now, I'm really concerned. A lot of these activities need to hopefully start getting kicked into gear. And also, with the to be determined date for the high school seniors actually being able to go back in person, that's another concern. But I'm excited for the work. I'm curious to know, when is it going to start, because the clock's ticking.
Yeah, no later than next week for sure.
Great.
If there's not already a meeting scheduled for this week, I'll make sure to talk to our team. Mahoney's leading it, under Mahoney's leadership and Tiffany's leadership. I'll make sure that we schedule something for no later than next week.
Because I have not heard of anything as of yet, so that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yeah, and kind of to what Mrs. Burke said, like I just think it's so important that these decisions are done very quickly. A decision's made and it's final. We ran into the problem last year. Once again, like we have students that are going to be joining the military. Colleges have changed their entire orientation schedules because of the pandemic. Like we can't have what happened last year happen this year. It can't happen. So I mean, I think it's really important that, like what Mrs. Burke said, with moving quickly and expeditiously, that we do the same so people can plan appropriately.
Note taken.
Thank you so much. So there's no further questions on anything from the superintendent receivers reports, fair to say? Good. All right, so moving on to new business, is there a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting for December 14th?
So moved.
Yes.
So I have a motion by Ms. Brunel, seconded by Ms. Tensley Williams. Roll call. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
For Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Ms. LaFave,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Ms. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Tensley Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Burks,
Yes.
Ms. Feliciano Sims,
Yes.
Mr. Wellahan,
Yes.
Mr. Collmore, Mr. Kershane,
Yes.
Okay, great. Motion passes. The next thing on the agenda, it says here, Dean Campus students request to speak regarding graduation. They're going to need more time. And so I'm just going to say that we're going to just put it on hold. They're not here to speak. Ms. Burks, I see your hand raised. Oh,
Sorry.
I thought you had a question. Okay, sorry. We'll just put this on for a later date if they come back and say they would like to present something. But for right now, there's no one here from it. So if that's okay, can we just move it? Do I need a motion to remove it from the agenda, or being that nobody's here for it? So we're good.
Mildred, I'll make a motion to refer it to the committee working on graduation, and they can work with them.
Okay, great. So there's a motion to send this to the committee. That'll be the graduation committee. Is there a second?
Second.
So a motion by Mr. Sheehan, seconded by Mr. Wallahan. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Burke, so are you raising your hand now for a discussion? Okay, sorry. So Ms. LaFawn, roll call, please.
Yes. Mayor Morris.
Yes.
Ms. LaFave.
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan.
Yes.
Ms. Brunel.
Yeah.
Ms. Tensley Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Burks. Yes.
Yes. Technical difficulties.
Ms. Feliciano Sims.
Yes.
Mr. Wellahan.
Yes.
Mr. Collmore. Have to *6 if you want to talk to us.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Cushane.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. So Ms. Burks, maybe for the next meeting, you can give us an update. There's nothing on ongoing business. Anybody have anything else to add to that? Oh, I bet you're going to beat me to what I want to say, Ms. Fontaine, but now you just, you didn't, Ms. Fontaine, I'm sorry. It's Monday. Ms. Brunel.
Not on old business, but when you get to announcements.
Okay, so announcements, and I was going to mention Mayor Morse. You are leaving us tonight. I found out this morning. But I do want to say thank you so much for your service. Thank you for being a part, on behalf of the school committee. We thank you for all that you've done. And we wish you only the best. I know Miss Brunel's, not Miss Fontaine, Miss Brunel's going to have something to add to it, but thank you again, Mayor Morse, for everything. Miss Brunel, sorry.
Thanks. No, I was just going to bring that up as well. I'm sure we all saw Mr. Morris submitted his letter of resignation, and it's just, I don't even have the words because we didn't really have time to prepare, but I just want to acknowledge all the work that he's put in, not only for the city, but for the school committee and as a friend of mine. And I just want to thank you for your time and your effort. I know that your new town will have a great town manager in their hands, and we wish you all the best. And Holyoke is certainly going to miss you. It's unfortunate we can't give you a proper send-off and a meeting with a plaque and all that jazz, but we love you and you'll be well missed. And, I'm sure Todd will do a great job filling in for you. Yeah, I don't know, just we'll miss you. We love you. All the best.
Thank you, Miss Brunel. Miss Brooks, did you have something you wanted to say? It's like that hand goes up, it goes down.
I did, but I think Alex has something he wants to say, so I'll let him go first. And Alex, I have the same sentiments. Thank you for everything that you've done.
I have something to say.
Oh, okay, Miss Tensley.
No, go ahead.
So Alex, I'm gonna have everybody say something for you that has something, and then I wanted to see if you had anything that you wanted to share with us, the school committee. So go ahead, Miss Tensley Williams.
I got to figure out how to mail your sweet potato pies to you.
I'll give you my address.
Okay. Okay.
Overnight them.
All righty.
I was waiting for your poem, to be honest, Miss Williams, because you're always on it. But thank you so much.
Well, I can do that if you got time. I didn't want to hold you.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. This one is going to be kind of sweet, okay? I wrote this poem. It's called Cupcakes. When someone mentions cupcakes, you think of pretty things. The way they look all decorated, all they need are angel's wings. And the more they talk about them, you think there is no use. If you could only taste one, oops, there goes that sweet tooth. Cupcakes are for birthdays and some for weddings too. No matter what the occasion, cupcakes will always do. Cupcakes are usually small and they have a lovely taste. In case you haven't noticed, they don't take up much space. All I can say about cupcakes is that they are cute and neat. I hope you want to eat one because they are so sweet. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Miss Williams. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it's your
You guys
turn,
have a
Mayor.
wonderful night.
You too, Miss Williams. Thank you.
You're welcome, sweetie.
Mayor Morris.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank all of you for a really great nearly 10 years on the school committee, and obviously it's bittersweet for me. I did announce a few months ago that I wasn't going to run for mayor again this year after 4 terms and a decade of service here in my hometown, and opportunity came up in Provincetown that just seemed like the great fit at a good moment, and really looking forward to my next chapter. And but Holyoke is my hometown, born and raised here, and a proud product of our city's public schools. And you know, I even think back to, I mean, all of you that I've had the opportunity to serve with, you know, people like Liz LaFond, who I met as a student representative on the school committee when I was 16, 17, and 18, you know, to Michael Hines, to just folks that have been, you know, people that oftentimes don't get the credit they deserve, the appreciation they deserve, that have really withstood a lot of transition and turnover over the last several years, ups and downs, people that get up every morning and put a smile on their face, even when things are really difficult, because they care so deeply about our kids and about our teachers. And really, it's meant the world to me. And I know as mayor over the years, I've championed a lot of our progress in the public schools because that's what mayors do. But none of that would have been possible without my colleagues on the school committee, our principals, our administrators, our teachers, of course, first and foremost, paraprofessionals, custodial staff, to folks in the cafeteria workers, secretaries, everybody in the school district does the work day in and day out. And it's just been the honor of my life to be able to have those opportunities to grow up in a place like Holyoke. You know, my mom grew up poor in Bowdoin Village, my dad in Tokeniki, and never did they imagine that their son would be mayor of their hometown. Neither even had the opportunity to graduate from high school. And you know, for me to have become mayor, to be able to give back to my hometown is something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And I will be back often. My family is still here, my friends, all of you, but I'll be a few hours away. And so if any of you find yourselves on the Cape or in Provincetown, we'd love to get together and grab a drink. I know a few of you have already offered to do that with me, but I wish you great success. Even though I won't be mayor, I always will be invested and interested in Holyoke's success. And I really am optimistic about our public schools and hopefully continue to work to regain local control and give all of you the voice that you deserve in the direction of our schools, and have full confidence in Anthony Soto and the entire team at central office for, again, just being incredibly dedicated, persistent, hard workers on behalf of everybody in the district. So thank you, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Mayor Morris. So I have 2 people. I have Mr. Sheehan. Oh, maybe I have more.
Yeah, I just want to thank Alex for his dedication to the community, for everything here, and his help over the years. I will say 12 years ago when I first ran for school committee, Alex was actually one of the first people who came out to one of my events. I think he was actually, of course, still in college then, but it was just getting to meet people and reach out to people. And I remember that and still appreciate that. And I will also say I was one of the people that said to him, we were meeting in the DM Cafe when he first decided to run for mayor. And so many people said this, but why don't you run for something else first, right? I mean, I think that's the answer that a lot of people gave when he wanted to jump into the mayor's race, and he jumped in feet first and ready for that. and times are good and times are bad, times are tough, and but Alex has been resilient with a lot of his work and pushing that forward. I will also say that there is such a amount of gratitude that I think that we as a board and as a community should have for Alex's family, that they allowed us to share him over these years and to be part of this. And I know that there is so much pride that his parents had in him and everything that he's done. And he should be so proud and happy of that, with that. But I really thank his family for also jumping into the spotlight with that. And they should be so proud of everything that he's done. And I thank them for their time and their everything they gave to Holyoke.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Ms. Burks.
I think Liz was up first.
Sorry, Ms. LaFawn. You are on mute.
Where I usually like to stay. Alex, when folks were talking about you initially, all I could remember was the sophomore who came into the first school committee meeting with sort of this head full of curls, and you just really immediately wanted to have a positive impact on the student body at Holyoke High. And you never stopped, and you always pushed really hard for things that were very important to you, and ultimately made a very big difference in the lives of many young students at Holyoke High School. And from there, you just continued on, and you continued to push hard for things that mattered to a lot of people. And I know you know this, but so many people will carry that with them. And it's inspired a lot of folks to do better things and be more involved in Holyoke. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. LaFawn. Ms. Burks.
So we're celebrating an ending, and we're also kind of celebrating a beginning. I want to say thank you to Anthony Soto for picking up the reins and taking on this role as interim superintendent, as well as the whole team at central office, all of our principals, all of our staff throughout the whole entire city, for basically not letting the ball drop. You guys did not miss a beat. And we need to say thank you. We need to say thank you to Anthony, because this is a huge job you're undertaking with your current role and the interim role. And thank you to your cabinet and your staff for all just really going hard and making sure that nothing fell through the cracks, that our kids were serviced. We kept moving forward. We did not stop. And the plans keep going on. So I just wanted to take a minute tonight to say thank you. You did an amazing job for your first school committee meeting, and to just say absolutely thank you for everything that you're doing. You are very much appreciated. And kudos to you, Anthony, because seriously, it's a hard job, and you stepped right up and right in for the students, the families, and the faculty of the Holyoke Public Schools. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Burks. Does anybody have anything else? Oh, Mr. Shane, yeah. I'm gonna have to put a little tab and show you where that raise hand button is.
Sorry about that. I thought that was just so well put, and I think I'd just like to thank you both as well. I know Anthony, this is a big role, but I feel like I've heard from you so many times over the years that I think it comes kind of natural that you take a lot of hard questions and you got a lot of good answers. And Alex, I wish you the best of luck. This is it's been a long 10 years, and you know, I hope that you find great success in everything else that you take on. So I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Miles.
Mr. Collmore, did you have something you wanted to say or share? Okay, maybe not. Mr. Sheehan?
I have a different announcement. Is that okay?
Sorry, you didn't hear me. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple weeks ago, right after the school vacation week, I had the opportunity to meet with Principal Swigert from Dunniu and Christine Burns from the Rotary International, as well as Katie Buckley from Rotary International, and the Holyoke Rotary Club actually donated 10,000 disposable masks to the Holyoke Public Schools for students. Each school got a box or so of those, and just to recognize that group, they were able to secure those through their organization to help with COVID relief, and they donated those. Dunniu was the donation spot because I think that Mrs. Burns works at Dunniu, but they were distributed out throughout by our entire operations staff to get that out there with that. So it was a great donation from them to our district.
It was very nice of them. On behalf of the school committee, maybe we can send them a letter or something, just thanking them. Anybody else have anything else to share? So, is there a motion? Mr. Soto, congratulations. You survived this first meeting all the way through. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
So I've got Miss Brunel, seconded by Mayor Morse, I believe. I had her. Was it you, Mayor Morse?
It was. I wanted to get a second in there before I leave.
Okay, well, you got it. You're going down in the books for that one. All right, so any discussion on that? I doubt it. All right, roll call, please, Ms. LaFawn.
Mayor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. LaFave.
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan.
Yes.
Ms. Brunel.
Yes.
Ms. Tensley Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Burks.
Yes.
Ms. Feliciano Sims.
Yes.
Mr. Wellahan.
Yes.
Mr. Collmore.
Star
Yes.
6.
Thank you. Mr. Kershane.
Yes.
Thank you.
So motion passes. So meeting adjourned 8:35 p.m. I want to thank everybody again. Mayor Morris, I wish you all the best.